Awesome. Cool. All right. Welcome, Heart and Fire podcast fans. This is another fiery episode. I'm your host, Maui Santos, and I'm welcomed by a very decorated individual. Before I go so deep into the bio, because we will explore that, let me welcome to the show, David, Allen Tracy. What's up, David?
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I know we're a little bit of a time difference. I know I'm in LA, you're in Florida. Where exactly in Florida?
I'm in Lakeland right
Right
now.
on.
Yeah.
And how has life been out there for you?
It's been amazing. It's been really nice. I grew up in the tropics in the rainforests of Panama, so I like warm weather and the beach. And I lived in Hawaii for a bit too, and we've been living in Iowa for 4+ years, and severe winters, and I am definitely enjoying Florida. Let's just put it that way.
I dig that. I dig that. You like the warm weather. I do as well. I know you had explored with me a little bit about how you travel a lot, so that's kind of shared. Can you uh kind of highlight like where you've been?
Wow, I've been to over 40 countries, and a lot of that travel was doing nonprofit work on a global level, um, all over the world. So I've been to every continent except for Antarctica,
Hmm.
and I've lived. Uh, so at a young age, we lived in Canada when I was a little kid, and then we lived in Mexico for like almost a year, and Guatemala for almost a year, then Panama for 25 years, and then also traveled extensively doing different types of community development projects around the world with teams. And literally, I lived in Egypt for almost 6 months as well. Like, so I've had a lot of travel experience and living abroad, and living a very multicultural life.
I dig
So
that.
it's been fun.
You touched on how you delved in some nonprofit work. Can you expand a little bit more about what it is that you did for the communities that you delved into?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my parents left the US when I was around 5, and basically moved to Latin America. And in Panama, where we were spent the most amount of time, the biggest work that was done, and probably the most, I mean, there was a lot of impact, but the biggest impact was amongst indigenous tribes. So Panama has 7 indigenous tribes, the Kuna, the Emberá, the Waunang, the Nove Bulere, and Bribri and Teribe. And we worked with all of them, but especially amongst the Emberá. For when I was a teenager, they worked amongst the Emberá. We had a boarding school in our property. A lot of the rural villages, the parents wanted the kids to get an education, but the schooling there was only up to sixth grade, and the quality of education was really like a third grade level, even
Wow.
if they graduated at sixth grade. So what would happen is that most of these indigenous kids wouldn't go beyond sixth grade, and so they're basically stuck in a cycle of poverty. And the ones who would leave the village to go to the city to live with a relative would have really extreme culture shock, because we're talking like they live in the jungle in a hut. Like, this isn't, so
Yeah.
literally there was a lot of problems happening where young girls are getting pregnant by the time they're 12 or 13. And then they're a young mom and they're stuck. And it was really impacting for them. Now we're looking at numerous generations, of young people who have graduated with from high school
Hmm.
while still retaining their native language and culture and customs, while speaking Spanish and English and the language that they come from the tribe, and going on to getting a university education, many of them, and being the first in their families ever to have that, then advocating on behalf of their communities and villages and so forth, and traveling, many of them themselves, to do international nonprofit work. And I remember specifically a story where we got to take a young indigenous kid to Brazil for a convention we were going to, and we were in the airplane. I think for anyone who's traveled for the first time on a plane, it's always exciting,
Yeah,
especially when you're a kid.
of course.
But for him, he had this like moment on the flight where, and his name is Nelson, and he was looking out the window and he shared with our group. He said, when I was a kid, I was in the jungle in the river fishing with my older brother, and I looked up and there was a plane flying overhead, and my brother looked down at me and he said, you and me will never be on one of those. And he goes, and look at where I am today. And that kind of impact is so exciting to see because it's worldview changing. It changes the mindset that people have, this poverty mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, indigenous tribes, not only in Central America but around the world, have been told for hundreds of years that that's their spot to be indigenous, that they don't have a voice, they don't have rights. And there's this poverty mindset that's come in play and where they feel like imposters. And now they have degrees and they're educating. So
I freaking love that. No, that's incredible. Like, yeah, I can only imagine like anytime anybody experiencing a thing for the first time, and just to be able to have like flying, something what some people who travel a lot probably don't really remember, maybe what that was like for them. But especially at a young age, it just gives so much like hope, like, okay, if I can see this through, it's like, what next? And that level of exploration and bringing the mind to a different level, to new heights. That's just amazing, because I believe that being able to allow people to even just see the vision, even if they're not experiencing in that moment, just to see the vision allows them to open doors for their minds so that they're not, in a box. And I'm so grateful that you're out there being able to do that. What other uh how do you say, cultural differences have you noticed in your worldly travels that has impacted your life?
yeah, I think that because I grew up so cross-cultural, I think it's very interesting to me. Like in the US, there's a big emphasis right now on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And and I was the VP for DEI for the American Marketing Association of Iowa for a year. And I really believe in it. But it's interesting because I think the culture shock for me, the difference is like I don't even see it. Like I celebrate everybody. It doesn't matter where you're from. Like everybody's got a story, everybody's got something to learn from. We are literally uh all made in God's image, So like literally it's just like, here, let's eat at the table together and let's share and let's learn.
Hmm.
But it's been interesting for me in the corporate realm because I worked on a lot of corporate level stuff now with businesses and so forth, because you have to assimilate values into the corporation or the business that
Hmm.
interprets down to the lowest levels. And for me, it comes down to values, where are our values? And so part of the things that I've traveled and traveling a lot and experiencing sitting on at someone's table, eating the food that they made lovingly and using ingredients from their backyard, and maybe they don't even have that much, but they're giving you the best that they have, or you're they're telling you something, a story that they think is just an everyday story, but their life, and you're like, that like challenges me. Like I'm learning from you right now, and
Hmm.
and you realize like how much we don't know, how much there is to glean all around us if we are open to experiencing it. I recently told a a young woman who was on a podcast I was on recently that, you know, if you want to do anything in your life that's going to bring you an impact and change you and give you a different perspective, go spend a few months abroad volunteering in a nonprofit, getting your hands dirty and working amongst local people, and your life will change. It's
Yeah.
inevitable. We get stuck in a rut, and most of us are in very small ruts right now, like very small ruts, because not only maybe are we staying more local, if we do travel, it's like to some touristy destination. We're not even seeing the local people.
Yeah.
And secondly, we're like stuck on our phone the whole time because we're trying to put out Instagram stuff. So we're always kind of keeping our blinders on
Hmm.
when when we can expand and learn and grow. It's incredible. It's absolutely, it just changes everything, your entire perspective and the decisions and choices you make.
Right.
So
No, that's so true. To be in a country and just to go to where everybody else goes, like that's probably like you said, popularized, but to immerse yourself more towards the way the locals live and really see like how they live and how they eat directly. That actually has like a different layout than most would come to see. But don't get me wrong. I mean, like going to see those touristy things, that has an element of fun that brings to the table. But I just know that you mentioned before about food being a way to a person's like life and like how they choose to live. I know you uh told me before that you have a culinary expertise. Can you elaborate more on that?
Sure thing. It's funny because I'm a marketing professional, I'm a personal brand coach, I'm a keynote speaker. Why am I a chef? I
Mhm.
went to school to become a chef. I'm a certified chef. And I love that I am. I love food. I love gathering people around the table to enjoy company, to share stories, to do all those things. And growing up in Panama, we hosted teams, like 50 something teams a year who would come down to volunteer. Plus, there were the ongoing staff and students who were being trained. And so on any given day on the property that my parents ran, there would be between 35 to 75 people eating on any given day,
Mhm.
and three meals a day plus like snack times. So a lot of food had to be prepared, and not always in the greatest of conditions, depending on what property we were on, especially when we were on like an outreach and we're like literally in the jungle. So I learned to cook really at a really young age for large groups of people
Yes.
and with limited resources sometimes. And so I loved that. Some of my favorite memories growing up was getting to do medical brigades where we'd go to a rural village, um, and I would cook on an open fire with big cauldrons and pots, and with the banana leaves over the pot to steam it and all the things like that, and cooking with local women, and just making food for the teams and for the villagers,
Mhm.
and how fun that is to do. The food just tastes so good, and under the wood fire and the smokiness of it, and you can't get rice made over a wood fire is just incredible.
Right.
And so I loved that. And then over the years, as I progressed, I went to culinary school, like I said, and of course I refined my cooking abilities exponentially at that point to where I could do fine dining, I could do catering, I could do banquets, and I absolutely love the element of hospitality, the element of, I think in all cultures, people love travel and we love going to the touristy sites and we love all the things, right? But
Mhm.
what's the thing we really like to do when we travel? It's like eating the food, right?
Totally
Like we'll
agreed.
take in the sights, but man, the sights are great, but then we're starving. We want to try something local. And anytime you go to a friend's house in Latin America, and I think it's similar in Asia too, like you don't ever go to someone's house where you're not offered something. Like you
Mhm.
are always offered something. And so it's very part of me to be hospitable and not just to host people and put on a party, but to really try to create community around that table. And I love all foods, but I really love Asian food in general, especially anything Southeast Asian or East Asian, is where I probably specialize in the most.
Okay.
And, I also have a certification in fermentation from Harvard University. And so when it comes to like kimchi and kombuchas and sauerkrauts and any of those fermented elements and, bread and sourdoughs, I love that stuff. Food is exciting. And to
Food
the
is
level
great.
where, yeah, I have a food show on YouTube called Midnight Food Coma.
Midnight
And,
food coma. Okay.
yeah, you guys got to check it out. It's fun. It's really fun and out there. It incorporates my love for Asian cuisine with my love for like sci-fi and like anime vibes and video games, and we combine it all together. So like literally we're like making kimchi, for example, but then getting chased like by monsters or getting abducted by aliens. And it's out there. You guys got to check it out. Midnight Food Coma.
Thank you again for listening to Heart on Fire podcast, or if you're viewing, we appreciate you all. And if you would like or subscribe or follow wherever you are tuning in, feel free to. And feel free to follow us on our Instagram page at heartonfire.podcast. And of course, we always want to empower you and say you are enough. And now let's continue on with the show.
That's incredible. Quick, yes, aside, I was like, how long have you been sustaining this midnight food coma project?
Yeah, it's been, it's maybe 2.5 years old at this point. We've been on a break for a bit, for a while. We have about 16 episodes we've already filmed that we're going to launch at some point. But like literally, it is one of these passion projects. It's just done for fun, but it's really high quality because we have a marketing agency. And this marketing agency does all the things, video production and animation and illustration. I meant, and so it's fun to kind of as a team kind of do these things and create the this product essentially that was just for fun.
Yes.
But yeah.
No, that's incredible. I love that. I love how you took your culinary fascination and love to like new heights, and like it's like, how else can I share it besides just bringing people around the table? You immersed yourself and put yourself out there, and that's like pretty incredible to do. What would you say is like one of your more impactful memories of being able to bring people around the table with your culinary cooking?
Probably one of the most impacting one for me was when we were in Haiti in 2010. So in 2010, there was an awful earthquake that was devastating for the country of Haiti. And a lot of people died, and a lot of people were injured, and a lot of people lost their homes. So many people lost their homes that their tent villages were erected in order to sustain entire families and communities that had lost everything due to the earthquake. And so we were stationed in a small tent village near St. Mark in Haiti. And basically, it was rough. Like we're talking like it was rough. Roughly, it was hot out. There was no running water. Like we had like to take this filtration system with the ditch, which was disgusting, like septic, nasty water, and put it through this huge filtration system to filter the water, which was amazing that it even worked, and it did. Right. And literally, like we ate, a lot of people just ate rice and beans every day because that's what was there, and that there's a time and a place for all of that. So here we are roughing it in the hot, like sleeping in tents, and and then I don't know. I just got to like restless at one point. I'm like, you know what? Let's have a big dinner for the entire village. There was like, I don't know, maybe 120, 150 people at this little village, and then our team. So I went downtown to St. Mark and I found a couple boxes of frozen chicken at this like warehouse that I was able to buy like directly. Like they were like suppliers for like restaurants and grocery stores. Amazing. And I was able to buy it directly from them. Got some like barbecue together, and I found some fettuccine and some heavy cream. I mean, I don't know how I found all this stuff, but I just did. I went around different stores, and so literally in the village we took rebar that was for like building these for this that was for building homes, and they were like probably 20 feet long, if not longer. So I took several of those plus these mason type bricks, and we created like a 20 to 25-foot long barbecue. And we barbecued hundreds of pieces of chicken at the same time. So me and like the guys were just like rotating chicken, and then I had this big cauldron, and I made literally at the village fettuccine Alfredo like over the wood fire, and barbecued chicken for like almost 200 people. And everybody was like having a great time, and because it was a huge reprieve from the norm, which was like rice and beans. Right. And so that was really fun because it was really encouraging. It was kind of like, I want to say it was like towards the end of our time there. So everybody's getting tired. Everybody's tired, and there was a lot of domestic violence that was happening, a lot of theft happening in the village, and a lot of stuff that was really stressful. And this was really life-giving for everyone. that was probably one of my highlights from a cooking standpoint. I think the other one just as well was going on a helicopter to the Colombian border in the jungle with the Air Force Navy of Panama. And
Wow.
we brought all the food with us in the helicopter, landed in this little village in the middle of nowhere, and made tons of food. It was, and my grandma came along and helped me cook, and my mom, and it was just really fun. So
No, that's incredible. Like, I just love how not only how resourceful that you are, but obviously to be able to create this community that obviously you weren't the only one cooking, you had hands on deck and to get people, involved. I think that's a big factor of, making change and impacting people is being able to get a group of people on the same idea and creating that and actually executing it to the end just goes to show like what one person can do can impact a lot.
absolutely, absolutely, it can.
And
It's fun.
I know that your impact doesn't just even stop, with your culinary skills. You definitely obviously have a voice that is definitely heard. You said yourself that you're a speaker. What is it about you creating that platform for yourself that you want to amplify, to the world about what your message is?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's interesting because, I mean, I wasn't really ever thinking about myself being a keynote speaker. It was one of those things where I kept being told I should be one, and I kept like, okay, then I would share my story. And I think all of us have every human being has a story to tell. And one thing I love about meeting people, and over the last four years, for example, I've done consulting or coaching for over 400 business owners, and every single one of them has a story that they're passionate about why they started their business and hardships that brought them into that.
Mhm.
And yet we oftentimes don't think our story is that interesting. Like we think our story is like, But in my case, I kept getting told, you have a story to tell, David. And, I grew up in the jungle amongst indigenous tribes, traveled over 40 countries, seen some things. I've also had cancer twice. I had cancer when I was 14, went through chemotherapy. Lots of stories around that, plus a few other like issues that happened as a young child that were very traumatic, and many things that weave the story, right? And what I have found for me and the voice that I probably carry and what I manifest as I'm in society at large, whether that be in the marketing realm for businesses, or whether that be in the personal branding realm, because I'm a personal brand coach, or an interior designer, because I do interior design, or events, catering or events or conventions that we used to do. All of that is about identity. Okay, we're creating identity. We're creating identity for brand identity for a business in my marketing agency. We're creating identity for people to authentically present themselves with authority on their topic or their area of expertise without holding back in the personal branding realm. And interior design, it's about creating a space that tells a story again, that resonates with people where they can go, oh, I get it. This is kind of nice,
Yeah,
Same with like an event that's effective, or a restaurant, for example, that's an effective restaurant. Its atmosphere, its environment, its food, its service, it's all of it creates this narrative. And some of the best restaurant experiences we've had, the food tells a story that the owners want you to know. And
absolutely.
so storytelling, brand identity, authenticity, being memorable, not in a fake way where you're trying to project, but where you tap into authentically who you're designed to be.
Hmm.
Man, you're on fire then, like this podcast, and so literally when your heart's on fire, like everybody can see it and wants to go around the glow and the warmth of that. So for me, I speak on areas of identity, on authenticity, and also overcoming adversity and trauma. I think everybody has gone through some stuff.
Yes,
Many of us are moving on. I think many of us are constantly in a place of healing because there's always new stuff that arises. But like we, many people I found don't know how to deal with their trauma, and so they don't. They stay stuck in it. And so what do you do with that? You're a business owner or you're a coach or whatever you are, and you're having all these issues and all this extra baggage that's getting in the way. So for me, I've kind of explained to people as a coach, I'm kind of like a Swiss Army knife depending on what someone needs with my different experiences, I can help them with their business plan, or I can help them with their branding, or I can help them with their marketing plan because we own an award-winning marketing agency. Or it can be like, let's talk about that trauma because I'm a certified theta healing practitioner. So like there's different areas that we can fall into. And so many of the people who come to work with me do so starting in one area, and then they overlap into other areas to where I'm kind of with them for their journey, per se, helping them along their path. And so as a keynote speaker, it's very similar in what I do. It's just shorter. Like I have 30 to 40 minutes to speak. And my goal in that moment is to motivate and inspire people to accomplish their dreams, but also to be willing to do the difficult steps that they need to go through. So
No, that's absolutely incredible. Like you've hit on so many different facets, not only as you as an individual, but also, like the reason why, it's important to share one's story and to be able to reflect on it, but to actually, more importantly, like move forward because you're not you're not are of your past anymore. You are in this present moment for a reason. And to be able to, learn from our experiences, which is very pivotal into knowing what direction you can do with it, because we don't want to repeat, one's past, unless of course it's electrifying and actually moving the needle forward every time. But I know that every time we experience through, especially hardships, like you say, there's definitely, ways to cultivate one's strength and to be able to use that and move forward and maybe even impact others at a level where they didn't even know that they could as well. So I appreciate you being not only just a voice, but also a coach to others, because, sometimes people don't know who else to, go to. And I like that you're actually one of the go-to people to be like, help me help you.
let me help you help you.
Yeah, there you go.
Exactly. No,
Absolutely.
and I like that. I think in 2020, during COVID and the pandemic, a lot of people felt very alone and isolated. For a lot of introverts, it was like, yay, I get some alone time. But then it was like, this is a lot of alone time. And there was a lot of stuff, let's put it that way, that surfaced. A lot of people became very aware of, whereas before they could maybe avoid some stuff, they now couldn't anymore.
Yes.
And so, and then also within, on the positive side of it, was that a lot of innovation and entrepreneurial ideas began to surface. And so many people, especially young people, are wanting to start businesses and start new ventures and be innovative. But with that comes like risk, financial risk. And does this already exist? And then people have like imposter syndrome. And a lot of young people too, they wonder, is it even worth it anymore? Because like all the ideas have been taken and I could never afford to do these things. And we look at AI technology, literally taking jobs. And a lot of people feel discouraged before they even start. But yet innovation and vision needs to be an ongoing thing. We need this generation to have vision. We also need them to have the commitment to see it through and not to live in the fantasy realm where a vision is merely an idea, but where that becomes a reality through their commitment. And so often I think young people lack potentially the role models that can show them in terms that they can relate to, because we hear our parents' generation or we see older generation are like, well, we back in the day did it this way. Well, it was a very different world back then. Very different world. Today's world is very different. And unfortunately, on social media and all the things we see the glamorized versions of businesses where they're like super successful, but they might be like hundreds of thousands in debt. We don't know.
Right.
Like we only see like one layer to it. And so what I wanted to try and help people, not just young people, but all people, is let's just put it all on the table. Like, where are you at financially, legally, emotionally, spiritually? Like, let's go there. Let's go there and let me help you, as you mentioned.
No, that's such all in all like great great anecdotal advice to be able to impact another human being.
Yeah. She done, son. She been done. She done did it.